For some years before his death, David was engaged in collecting materials for building a temple in Jerusalem as a permanent home for Yahweh and the Ark of the Covenant. Solomon is described as undertaking the construction of the temple, with the help of an architect, also named Hiram, and other materials, sent from King Hiram of Tyre. After the completion of the temple, Solomon is described in the biblical narrative as erecting many other buildings of importance in Jerusalem. For 13 years, he was engaged in the building of a royal palace on Ophel, a hilly promontory in central Jerusalem. This complex included buildings referred to as the House or Hall of the Forest of Lebanon, the Hall or Porch of Pillars, the Hall of the Throne or the Hall of Justice, as well as his own residence and a residence for his wife, Pharaoh's daughter. Solomon's throne is said to have been spectacularly opulent and possessed moving parts, making it one of the earliest mechanical devices in history. Solomon also constructed great waterworks for the city, and the Millo, Septuagint, Acra, for the defense of the city. However, excavations of Jerusalem have discovered no monumental architecture from the era, and no remains of either the temple or Solomon's palace have been found. Solomon is also described as rebuilding cities elsewhere in Israel, creating the port of Ezion-Geber, and constructing Palmyra in the wilderness as a commercial depot and military outpost. Although the location of the port of Ezion-Geber is known, no remains have ever been found. More archaeological success has been achieved with the major cities Solomon is said to have strengthened or rebuilt, for example, Hazor, Megiddo, and Gezer. These all have substantial ancient remains, including impressive six-chambered gates and ashlar palaces. However, it is no longer the scholarly consensus that these structures date to the time, according to the Bible, when Solomon ruled. According to the Bible, during Solomon's reign, Israel enjoyed great commercial prosperity, with extensive traffic being carried on by land with Tyre, Egypt, and Arabia, and by sea with Tarshish, Ophir, and South India. Wives and concubines. According to the biblical account, Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. The wives were described as foreign princesses, including Pharaoh's daughter and women of Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon, and of the Hittites. His marriage to Pharaoh's daughter appears to have cemented a political alliance with Egypt, whereas he clung to his other wives and concubines in love. The only wife mentioned by name is Naamah the Ammonite, mother of Solomon's successor, Rehoboam. The biblical narrative notes with disapproval that Solomon permitted his foreign wives to import their national deities, building temples to Ashtoreth and Milcom. In the branch of literary analysis that examines the Bible, called higher criticism, the story of Solomon falling into idolatry by the influence of Pharaoh's daughter and his other foreign wives is customarily seen as the handiwork of the Deuteronomistic historians, who are held to have written, compiled, or edited texts to legitimize the reforms of Hezekiah's great-grandson, King Josiah, who reigned from about 641 to 609 BCE, over 280 years after Solomon's death according to Bible scholars. Scholarly consensus in this field holds that Solomon's wives/women were introduced in the Josianic, customarily DTR, edition of Kings as a theological construct to blame the schism between Judah and the northern kingdom of Israel on his misdeeds. Relationship with Queen of Sheba. In a brief, unelaborated, and enigmatic passage, the Hebrew Bible describes how the fame of Solomon's wisdom and wealth reached even the far-off Queen of Sheba. The queen is described as visiting with gifts including gold, spices, and precious stones. When Solomon gave her all her desire, whatsoever she asked, she left satisfied. 1 Kings 10 verse 13. Whether the passage is simply to provide a brief foreign witness of Solomon's wealth and wisdom, or whether the visit is meant to have more significance, is unknown. Nevertheless, the Queen of Sheba has become the subject of numerous stories. Sheba is typically identified as Saba, a nation once spanning the Red Sea on the coasts of what are now Eritrea, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Yemen, in Arabia Felix, although other sources place it in the area of what is now northern Ethiopia and Eritrea. In a rabbinical account, e.g. Targum Sheni, Colloquy of the Queen of Sheba, Solomon was accustomed to ordering animals to dance before him, a power granted by God, and upon summoning the mountain cock or hoopoe, Aramaic name, Nugar Turah, the bird told him it had discovered a land in the east, rich in gold, silver, and plants, whose capital was called Kiter and whose ruler was the Queen of Sheba. Solomon then sent the bird to request the queen's visit. An Ethiopian account from the 14th century, Kabra Nagast, maintains that the Queen of Sheba had sexual relations with King Solomon and gave birth beside the Mybella stream in the province of Hamazian, Eritrea. The Ethiopian tradition has a detailed account of the affair. The child was a son who became Menelik I, king of Aksum, and founded a dynasty that would reign as the Jewish, then Christian, Empire of Ethiopia, which lasted 2,900 years until Haile Selassie was overthrown in 1974. Menelik was said to be a practicing Jew who was given a replica of the Ark of the Covenant by King Solomon, and, moreover, that the original Ark was switched and went to Aksum with him and his mother, and is still there, guarded by a single dedicated priest. The claim of such a lineage and of possession of the Ark was an important source of legitimacy and prestige for the Ethiopian monarchy through the centuries, and had important and lasting effects on Ethiopian culture. The Ethiopian government and church deny all requests to view the alleged Ark. Some classical-era rabbis, attacking Solomon's moral character, have claimed instead that the child was an ancestor of Nebuchadnezzar II, who destroyed Solomon's temple some 300 years later. Sins and punishment. Jewish scribes say that Solomon's teacher was Shimi ben Gera, and while he lived, he prevented Solomon from marrying foreign wives. The Talmud says at Ber 8a, for as long as Shimi the son of Gera was alive, Solomon did not marry the daughter of Pharaoh. See also Midrash Tehillim to Psalms 3 verse 1. Solomon's execution of Shimi was his first descent into sin. According to 1 Kings 11 verse 4, Solomon's wives turned his heart after other gods, their own national deities, to whom Solomon built temples, thus incurring divine anger and retribution in the form of the division of the kingdom after Solomon's death. 1 Kings 11 verses 9 to 13. 1 Kings 11 describes Solomon's descent into idolatry, particularly his turning after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the god of the Ammonites. In Deuteronomy 17 verses 16 to 17, a king is commanded not to multiply horses or wives, neither greatly multiply to himself gold or silver. Solomon sinned in all three of these areas. In addition to his wives, he collected 666 talents of gold each year, 1 Kings 10 verse 14, a huge amount for a small nation like Israel. He gathered multitudes of horses and chariots from as far as Egypt, and as Deuteronomy 17 warns, took Israel back to Egypt in spirit. According to 1 Kings 11 verses 30 to 34 and 1 Kings 11 verses 9 to 13, it was because of these sins that the Lord punished Solomon by removing most of the tribes of Israel from rule by Solomon's house. Enemies. Near the end of his life, Solomon was beset by several enemies, including Hadad of Edom, Rezon of Zobah, and his own official Jeroboam of the tribe of Ephraim. Death, succession of Rehoboam, and kingdom division. King Solomon is a central biblical figure, who, according to the Hebrew Bible, was the builder of the first temple in Jerusalem and the last ruler of the United Kingdom of Israel. After a reign of 40 years, 1 Kings 11 verse 42, he died of natural causes, at around 55 years of age. Upon Solomon's death, his son, Rehoboam, succeeded him, but 10 of the tribes of Israel refused him as king, splitting the monarchy into the northern kingdom of Israel under Jeroboam, while Rehoboam continued to reign over the smaller southern kingdom of Judah. Henceforth the two kingdoms were never again united. Solomon is associated with the peak, golden age of the independent kingdom of Israel and is a legendary source of judicial and religious wisdom. According to Jewish tradition, King Solomon wrote 3 books of the Bible. Mishlei, Book of Proverbs, a collection of fables and wisdom of life. Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, a book of contemplation and self-reflection. Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs, a collection of erotic verse. The verse has been interpreted both literally, describing a romantic and sexual relationship between a man and a woman, and metaphorically, describing a relationship between God and his people.